Welcome to Soaps.com. I'm Kristen Burt. Joining us today is Stephen Nichols, who is celebrating his 40th anniversary on Days of Our Lives. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We are so excited for you. I've got to ask, I sit there and think that 1985 was still like 10, 15 years ago. So I don't know what it feels like for you. Does it feel like 40? Does it feel like 10?
Well, how can you think that it's 10 or 15 years ago? You're so young.
Thank you.
Yeah, listen, it doesn't feel like 40 years. It really doesn't. But what the number 40 seems like a lot, and I'm amazed by that. And yes, it went very quickly.
Well, I love that you are still on the show and that the storyline is still thriving. And I'd like to kind of take it all back to when you started, because
Mhm.
Steve at the time was a really bad guy. Did you think that he was there for the long haul? Did you see that potential in this character?
The way it went down was it was really supposed to be a recurring role. It was written to be 2 or 3 months. I didn't find out right away, but later, a couple of years later, I found out that Brian Franz, who was the head of NBC at the time, had this idea. He'd been watching Rich Man, Poor Man, and he said, we should get a character on the show to, come in and wreak havoc for Bo and Hope, like Falconetti, the dude on Rich Man, Poor Man. And that guy was very bad. He was an A-plus villain. And when I came in, I was doing horrible things, and I would do anything for money. And um, my impression was that this guy was a pure villain at first. And in fact, when Doris Saba called me, she called me at home for this part because she had cast me in a bunch of other bad guy roles in primetime TV, and she'd seen all of my theater work, and she was really a big supporter of mine. She called me at home and said, "Hey, it's Days of Our Lives. It's a soap, and the guy he's got a patch, he carries a knife, and he's crazy." And I really took the crazy to heart when I came in to do it. He said, "Go, you'll do great." Is what she said. And that's how I stepped off into the character. And I was doing a lot of bad stuff.
How much freedom did you have at the time to really flesh out this character? Because at the time you're thinking it's recurring. Did that maybe come later once you knew that, he was around to stay in Salem?
Well, I felt like I had a lot of freedom at first because I didn't expect it to go any further than a couple of months. And, I guess I was supposed to be killed near the end of that 2 or 3 months. So I just felt, I mean, I'll do what I can do to make the guy interesting at least. I mean, he had a patch, where'd that come from? How did he lose his eye? How does he feel about wearing a patch? Is he self-conscious about it? Is he angry? And, I brought all that stuff in there. And I had a couple of people I knew back home in Ohio who were really bad, bad dudes, from the wrong side of the tracks. And I remembered these guys, and I kind of put some physical traits and things that I remembered from who these guys were into this character. So I was working on it. I was doing my best to create something, you know.
Well, I'd love to know, how has your portrayal of Steve evolved over the years? We know the character's evolved, but how have you approached it? Because we know that he's had comebacks and transformations and everything else.
Well, Steve had to grow up eventually. In the beginning, he was really immature, and but he did have a heart. He did have a conscience, and I guess we found that out when around the time with the story of the pawn, where he had the pawn in his room, and he he bought him a Christmas tree, and he played Christmas carols on his harp for him. So he really did have he had a heart, and he had never done anything that awful. I mean, he pretended to have a bowl of acid above Hope's head at one point, but it wasn't really acid. So, but he didn't kill anybody. Um, he didn't do anything all that bad. I think he roughed Hope up a little bit too much. I actually look back at some of those scenes with Hope and oh my God, back then, I mean, today, what we did back then would not fly at all. And I was actually shocked looking at that stuff. The
Yeah,
way
I've got to imagine like going back and looking at some of that stuff, you go, okay, that would not be a 2025 storyline, or it would not be handled in that manner for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, it wouldn't be. Yeah.
Incredible. Was there a moment in Steve's transition where you started to think he's going to be in Salem for a long time?
Well, yeah, there were a couple of moments. Story-wise, it seemed like the story in Miami, the umbrella story with Bo and Hope and Shane and Savannah and Kyriakis, everybody was involved in that. I felt like being a part of that, I might have a chance of staying around. And I'm not really clear on the timeline, but there were some scenes in a warehouse. I guess it was some kind of no, maybe it was a market. And I was chasing Pete and Melissa, and there was a fight of some kind, and Pete was throwing fruit at me, and we did a take, and Shelley Curtis came running out onto the set, and she said, "I just want you to know, you're not going to die." So she told me right then and there that I had a future on the show. And shortly after that, I got a job doing this horror movie, Witchboard. And Al Rabin was not happy because I told him I have this job and I'm going to go do this movie. And, you know, when it's over, maybe I can come back. And he goes, we were ready to offer you a contract. I said, okay, well, when I come back, offer me a contract.
You're like, I'll
I
take
really want
it.
to do this movie. So I knew that I was in and they were going to create some story for me. Um, at one point, Peter and I had gone to the writers, producers, somebody, and asked to get some kind of backstory because they were playing this deal that Bo had in fact put my eye out, and we had no idea how that happened, but I was really angry about that. So they gave us a one-page backstory, and it turned out to be a lot darker than the way it played out. Um, that backstory was supposed to, I mean, I was supposed to die, and I had actually been dealing drugs in the Merchant Marine, and and one of his little friends got a hold of some drugs and died, and that's why Bo and I fought, and I lost my eye. So that was a lot darker than the way things turned out.
Right.
But
Wow.
yeah, yeah. I feel like the writers did a really great job of weaving this story and how I was excited to be, that Kayla Brady was the person that Emma sent me to terrorize, to scare out of town, and because she was a Brady, I still had a vendetta against Bo, and eventually the way the whole thing unfolded was just, it was really, really good storytelling. So.
And a great way to keep you around.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk Mary Beth because I'd love to know if you guys just clicked immediately from the start off screen because you're magical on screen. We know this.
Well, yeah, I always tell this story about her audition. Well, she tells a story about the first time she auditioned, which was she came upstairs to audition in the producer's office, and she saw me, and there I am with this patch and the scar and the leather jacket, and she just thought, who is this guy? I mean, she had no idea what she was walking into. But I don't remember anything else about that. But then her screen test, she did the take, and after the first take, I think they made some adjustments, and then we did another take. And as soon as she was finished, she goes, "Well, that was shit," and she just walked away. And I thought, I really like this woman. I mean, for an actor to be that honest in front of other actors in the whole damn place, you know, that was amazing. And I liked her from the beginning.
Were you
And
able to fight for her at all in that moment to say, I really
no,
like
I
her?
didn't have to. Well, I couldn't have fought for her if I wanted to because I didn't have that kind of power, at that point to have a voice in who they chose and. So, but once we started working together, it was like a dream come true. And I hear stories about other couples and other actors working together and the struggles they have, and sometimes they don't really like each other that well, but they still kind of make it work, but it's a struggle. With Mary Beth, it's always been so easy. Um, in the early days, we rehearsed a lot. We don't have that luxury now. I mean, we're running lines. We're trying to keep our lines together. Back then, we had the day. And Mary Beth and I would go out on the set and we would work these scenes until we were sure we were in a good place and we were comfortable. And then we could be free and just do the work. Um, and it was always so easy with her. She's a really intuitive, spontaneous actor. And in life, she's the only person I know who's in the moment always. She lives in the moment, which is like that's what you need as an actor.
And your characters have evolved too. It was tormentor and victim, and now it's sweethearts. How was that? Were there any discussions for you guys on like how to handle that transition?
We never got really analytical about any of it. We just worked. And we were so busy all the time. We had no idea what was actually going on out in the world in terms of fans and popularity and all that stuff. We had no idea until we went out on some fan events and saw the reaction. It was quite shocking because we were just doing the work.
How about Stephen Kayla? Is there anything that could actually threaten their marriage, or are they just complete end game at this point?
Barring getting another chip put in my head, turning me back into Stephen-O, I don't see anything. But I mean, the thing that the most contentious issue with them and with Kayla has always been Steve goes off and does things without telling her, without asking her opinion, without sharing with her and actually making a decision together. So that's a lesson I think Steve has finally learned. And after the Stephen-O story, he did promise her that he would never do that again. And he's so far from that point to this point, he's kept that promise.
Since you just mentioned Stephen-O, it was fun to watch for us as viewers. Were you sorry that you didn't get to play the Stephen-O or play Stefano's essence a little bit longer in all of that?
Uh, Maybe not sorry, but I really enjoyed it. I would have liked to have played it longer. It was a lot of work, but I had a great time. I had a great time.
Oh, I love to hear that. We've talked about Mary Beth, but I'd love to talk about maybe some of your other leading ladies as well over the years. So I would love to know what your thoughts were with Hunter. Did you know that she was a star in the making when she was cast on the show?
She was absolutely beautiful. She was gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, she was she was made for soaps. I mean, as a leading lady, she definitely had the looks, and she was a good actress. Yeah,
Great actress. Yeah. How about Julie Pinson? I know that Steve dated Billy in 2006 during that bout of amnesia.
yeah,
What was it like
that
working
was
with
quick.
Julie?
That was quick. Yeah. Funny story. She's with Billy Warlock at that time. They were together at that point, and and we Julie and I were going to have our first kissing scene. Billy pulls me aside, one day before or something, and he goes, "By the way, Steve, no tongue." He says, "No tongue." And I told Julie, she just cracked up. I don't even think they discussed it, but he made sure to come to me and say no
Man,
tongue.
man.
I guess he'd seen the way I've been kissing Kayla.
And he was like, whoa,
and
whoa,
and
whoa.
and John and Marlena, the way they were like eating each other's faces. So he made sure that I was going to, toe that line. But
I love it.
Julie, was a really good actress, is a really good actress, and maybe she'll come back someday. But I actually used her in a short film that I did. She was the lead in that, and because she was very funny, she had a great sense of humor. She's a really good actress, and I always enjoyed working with her.
Oh, I
She
love that.
had a kind of an irreverent sense of humor, you know.
I I love an irreverent sense of humor, a little bit offbeat and just like
Yeah, yeah.
so fun to work with. Tamara Braun, any thoughts on her?
Oh, Tamara, man, she's such a great actress. I always enjoyed working with her. She was so unpredictable. Uh, when we did scenes together, I never knew what was coming. I really had to be on my toes. And that's always fun to be across from somebody who's giving you so much and so much color and so many different levels. Yeah, she's great. And as a person, uh, she's one of the kindest people I know. She's really sweet.
And then, of course, we have to ask about Christian and Deidre during the uh, during your
Yes,
era.
my queen of the night
Yes,
and my Princess Gina.
yes.
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't see any of that coming. This whole Steveno thing, when I said I was coming back, they didn't really tell me the story and they were being very cagey about it. So I was very surprised when I started to get scripts. I said, "What? I'm going to be Stefano?"
Like,
Wow. And then Princess Gina, and then my Queen of the Night. It was all too much. But
it's so
man,
delicious, though.
I always loved working with Christian because, I mean, we have history from way back in the 80s and we always had great fun. She's always so prepared. She knows every word and she's thought about the work and about the scenes and, she's always prepared. She's really, really great. And Deirdre, come on. She's the queen. She is the queen of the night.
She 100%
We
is.
had
She's,
great fun. We had great fun. And the writing for that whole Steveno story was really rich. It was really good. It's a lot of fun.
when you celebrate a milestone like 40 years, I've got to imagine everyone's asking you your favorite storyline, your least favorite storyline. But is there just one that you would love to go back and do again, relive again, maybe because you loved it so much, or redo it again because you didn't love it so much?
Okay. Well, I would love to go back to Kayla's death storyline.
Mm,
That was, again, that was a lot of work because we both had to learn to sign, and I was watching her sign and saying her lines because she couldn't speak
right.
or hear. And Mary Beth was, I mean, she went for however long that lasted, 3 months maybe, without saying a word, and everything was on her face. Everything she needed was right there. It was beautiful to watch. And she and I had so much fun learning to sign and, rehearsing all of that stuff. And then they weaved in the Billy story with Billy finding out, or Jack finding out that he was Billy, and uh, and then the wedding. It was so, so beautiful.
That's so special. I
I would
love
do
that.
it again. I mean, they come up with another story like that where there's an explosion and she goes deaf and mute, and we can do that again. That'd be great.
But it speaks of the magic of the two of you together as, on screen and what you can create. That's incredible.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have each other, and I'm the most lucky to have her. I can tell you that.
Well, and we're so lucky to have you 40 years on our television screens. I just want to say congratulations. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking time with us today.
I so appreciate it. Thank you so much.